Hey guys, Sean here. CBDCs are coming and there's no escape. What can we do? Is it all over for us? So the Davos summit just ended and the central topic there was all about CBDCs and cryptocurrencies. Now we all know about the Terra Luna stablecoin crash and how people has lost billions of dollars as a result, and it didn't take long for the managing director of the IMF to start demonizing cryptos and is proposing CBDCs or central bank digital currencies to be the solution. Remember that no government likes having a competing currency, and even Powell himself has come out to say you wouldn't need stable coins, you wouldn't need cryptocurrencies if you had a digital US currency. Now the signs are getting clearer and clearer with each passing day. The advancements towards CBDCs is moving forward, as the United States is now also trying to use the SWIFT system to try and connect all CBDCs together and take control of the transaction highway. It's basically the same thing as how the US dollar is the world reserve currency, but now the US is trying to flex their dominance in the new coming digital payments era. And does it get worse? Yes, it does. Right now, 9 countries are already active with their own digital currencies, and it's just a matter of time before you and I are using Fedcoin or the digital dollar to transact. Now, the move towards digital currencies is inevitable. There's no hiding from it, and this has very big implications for the economy and our wealth. And this is what today's video is all about. We will tear through the biggest issues with CBDCs that you must know, and you'll quickly realize how important it is to diversify your wealth outside of the system. I really want you to understand what CBDCs are all about and replay this video back as many times as you need until the message sinks in. Before we can address the issue, we need to understand how CBDCs work. All of our transactions today are already digital. We use our credit or debit card to buy stuff, and we transfer our money with a swipe online. But it's all still going through a commercial bank, and that is the key. Maybe it's Citibank, maybe it's JP Morgan, doesn't matter what your bank is. But with CBDCs, these banks are suddenly cut away. There isn't much use for this middleman for transactions. And now you and I will be given a digital wallet. It's like a crypto wallet but issued by the Federal Reserve or central bank. And now currency units can be directly injected into our wallets, and there's no need for bank accounts anymore in a sense. So this information of how much money you have and where the transfers are going are either going to be stored on a digital public ledger like Bitcoin, or most likely just stored in a Fed's own private blockchain. Now this is important. It is called centralized control. Now a lot of the touters of CBDCs are highlighting the good parts, which I don't deny. Yes, payments will be faster, there will be near zero transaction fees, and you are protected against scams and frauds, no denying about that. But the big problem with CBDCs goes beyond having your money being traceable. That's a serious issue, but still not the big problem. Now the bigger issue is how the Fed can now dictate monetary policy immediately with a snap of your fingers, and this time it'll be extremely surgical and there'll be no recourse around it. This will cause more asset bubbles to blow up, inflation to just soar even further, and the economy could really rapidly devolve into a full command economy where the Fed has really become the master of the universe. So the big issue with CBDCs is the Fed now has 4 dangerous tools they can use to influence the economy. Think of them as the 4 horsemen of the financial apocalypse, and if taken to the extreme can really cause havoc in the economy. Now, before CBDCs, as in the world that we are currently living in still, it is still not easy to fully control the economy because there are still commercial banks in between. Let me explain. You see, when rate hikes or lowering rates happen, it takes time for the effects to happen. Just because Fed rate hikes today doesn't mean that your mortgage payments will rise tomorrow. The commercial banks will have to gradually adjust it. And when the Fed prints money, it doesn't go straight to the economy. The majority goes to the banks and just sits there waiting to be lent out. So if the banks don't lend out the money, nothing really happens, right? So the velocity of money is still controlled, and that is why food prices haven't just doubled even though they printed trillions of dollars. But once CBDCs come in, there will be literally zero delays, right? Near zero delays. This time, Money will truly be a financial weapon of destruction, and we all just don't know it yet. They can control our behavior of how we spend money and what we spend it on. And if we understand this, we can position ourselves early, because when people truly wake up, right, there will be a big flow of money out of CBDCs into private wealth assets. But we need to know the signs of when that will happen. Firstly, the Fed can now use interest rates to condition us on when to spend our money. Right now, a lot of countries, including Japan and Europe, are still near zero or even negative rates to encourage spending. But it isn't really working, because they forget a simple fact. People can just withdraw their money and sit on cash and stash it under the mattress. In fact, that is what the Japanese have been doing for years, and this is one of the main reasons why prices aren't going through the moon just yet. Right now, Japan is seeing its household spending drop, even though the Bank of Japan is furiously printing money and lowering rates to boost spending. People just refuse to spend. You hit me with a negative interest rate, okay, I'll just withdraw my money and I'll sit on it. I'll be stubborn and I'll just sit on it. But with CBDCs and digital wallets, where now only digital money is the main way you transact, now negative interest rates, they do have a big effect. It's either you spend your money or see it bleed purchasing power away on top of inflation, which is already quite ridiculous. So just imagine, one day you wake up and rates suddenly are at a negative 1% because the Fed suddenly needs you to go out and spend. You have no choice, you'll go out there and start buying stuff. Maybe you'll start stocking out of food, maybe you'll dump it on the stock market, maybe you'll book that holiday that's long overdue. But whatever the case, this movement of money out of digital wallets can just make inflation soar even higher. People will start running to tangible goods. Tool number 2, the Fed can now inject money directly into your bank account. Now on the surface, this sounds great. Yes, finally you have more money that you can spend. But what if that money comes with terms and conditions? There's no such thing as a freebie, there's always a catch. For example, if the Fed decides to helicopter money again, they could impose a criteria that you can only use it to buy food and fuel. Now fair enough. Or that you can't use the stimulus check to buy cryptocurrencies. Now that alone is enough to just crash Bitcoin even further. But this isn't a myth, it could happen. Now China did a test pilot program where they gave out $30 each to around 50,000 people, and they could only spend it first at specific retailers and businesses. Now if this isn't a command economy, I don't know what is. But what happens if you slap a time limit on the money given? If you don't spend it within a week and it vanishes, suddenly you'll have another wave of buying and people rushing in to buy stuff again, causing yet another spike in inflation. Now people who want to hang on to their dollars or yuan are now forced to spend them, and people are just conditioned to spend and save money less. So we now know that CBDCs can be used to influence how money moves, and what comes next could be capital controls, which is tool number 3. Take China for example. They have long restricted their citizens from taking capital out of the country, and that means local investors there can't really move their money around in huge amounts and invest in the US markets. It's gonna get very complicated as well, especially when it comes to the Chinese trying to buy property overseas. And it's mainly because China needs the money to remain on the mainland to really prop up their own housing bubble, or everything will crash like a house of cards. Now if the Fed adopts this will mean moving your money overseas is going to be a whole lot tougher, and that's why I believe Bitcoin and cryptos will not survive once the Fed coin comes out, and I'll touch on that a little later. But if we project this out on a macro scale, now the US can now impose sanctions even faster because it doesn't need to force banks and businesses to stop doing business with countries like Russia, right? They can just freeze transactions and the digital dollars if the blockchain is a private one that the Fed controls. Plus, a CBDC might actually make it harder for you to get out of a particular currency when there's a crisis. For example, if you're in Turkey and you have high inflation, naturally you want to get out of the lira and run to the US dollar, or even buy gold to store your purchasing power. Now guess what? If money was a completely digital currency, the central bank could stop that from happening. Now, a lot of people believe that the Fed will just outright ban us from buying things such as gold and silver, and also prevent hoarding of food and fuel supplies. Now, this is definitely a possibility, but they don't even need to go there. They don't even need to ban anything. Now, there are two ways to control human behavior: the carrot and the stick. And why do you even bother to use the stick when using the carrot or velvet glove will get the work done with less pushback and even leave a smile on our faces, right? Now, if you're confused, I'll explain. Let's say you open up your digital wallet one day and you see on the screen chicken at the supermarket today is 5% off, or gasoline prices are now 10% cheaper this week. You know what? I'll take the deal. Sounds like a great deal. And maybe using your digital dollar to invest in the stock market will be quicker and with no transaction fees as well. Suddenly, to the masses, it looks much more attractive than, say, buying physical gold with an additional premium of 5%, right? So when the Fed has control of the platform of how you use your money, they can make certain goods and services or one asset over the other just look more attractive, right? And this will inevitably cause bubbles to blow up in one sector or inflate asset prices even more. This is why having private wealth in our hands outside of the financial system is just so important. You want to make sure that you still have options to use your money how you want to without being influenced. Now, I'm talking about stacking physical gold and silver outside of the system, something that you can hold and is within reach. Because the road to hell is always paved with good intentions, and you want to hedge yourself against any of the scenarios I mentioned earlier. Now, it's very likely that when digital money comes online and people start learning more about CBDCs, there could be a flood of cash that will just pile into precious metals. Now, a lot of digital money, they can be typed into existence versus a finite amount of gold which has to be mined and refined from the ground. And that is why on a macro scale, I'm still very bullish on gold even though the prices are near all-time highs. Plus, there's also a reason why central banks themselves have their reserves in physical gold. And maybe it's because they know that it is a true form of money. Now, let's say the Fed really uses CBDCs and the Fed coin responsibly, and there are no price controls, no capital controls, or influencing our consumer behavior. Let's say they're all sweet little angels and have our best interests at heart. Now, gold and silver will still be a good store of value because now monetary policy will still become more efficient, especially when it comes to lowering rates and injecting money into the system. There's no need for commercial banks, and for the most part, people can just spend more directly, and this means inflation could just soar even higher. Alright, I said earlier that Bitcoin might not survive CBDCs. I get it, this is a controversial take, but we still need to talk about it. And that is because governments can suddenly come down hard and regulate, if not an outright ban on cryptos from being a means of transaction. Right now, I believe they're just tolerating cryptos because they need private industry to build up the blockchain and perfect the technology. But once CBDCs are perfected, it is not a stretch to think that cryptos can be banned from usage, and I have 2 points to make on that front. Firstly, every time you and we use dollars, whether it is cash or electronic money, we have to pay a form of tax in it, in the form of a sales tax or value-added tax. Now, if someone sells their car or bar of chocolate for a fraction of a Bitcoin or Satoshi, that transaction can't be taxed. There's no contribution of revenue to the government. Now, secondly, every time some stupid stablecoin project like Terra Luna crashes, it gives the US government an additional reason to regulate cryptos on the whole for the public good. And they can kill off cryptos, or at least make them less visible as a currency, by simply preventing cryptos from being exchanged back into CBDCs and stopping CBDCs from being used in all these crypto exchanges. Now, all they have to do is to write an additional piece of code to the digital dollar and it's done. This is why if you're a crypto bro, you need to think of this possibility and diversify away from Bitcoin as well. Because if more doggy coins and Terra Luna projects crash and burn, and once CBDCs are perfected, it's not impossible that cryptos could be banned. And this circles back to protecting our own wealth as best as we can. There's nothing we can do to prevent the rise of CBDCs, and whether it is 5 years or 50 years, they will eventually come. The machines will come for us. And this is why we need to be prepared by storing some wealth outside of the system. It's very simple. Gold and silver. How complicated can it get? Now, could CBDCs collapse under their own weight? Yes. If people collectively just refuse to use them, then it's definitely possible. But in my opinion, the masses will just go along with it and it will become the new norm. It will become the new way we handle money going forward. Now, just additional note, I have a feeling that commercial banks will take a financial hit once CBDCs comes out because now power over money is now centralized under the Federal Reserve. Banking stocks, in my opinion, might get crushed. There's no need for middlemen for most things. Central banks can now directly facilitate payments, lending, and even pay interest directly to depositors. Kind of sounds more or less what banks are kind of doing right now, right? So let me know what you think. Are you well prepared for CBDCs? Let me know in the comments below and be sure to smash the like button and subscribe to my channel. Thank you guys for watching and I'll see you soon.